Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a truly epic narrative. We are diving deep into the hidden mythological origins of dwarves, ents, and giant eagles. We're going to explore how a single, completely unauthorized act of creation sparked an ancient cosmic balance between the heavy forces of industry and the sanctity of nature. It's a massive story, really. It's got rebellion, divine intervention, and that eternal, relatable struggle over how we interact with the natural world around us. And honestly, that's a struggle that feels just as relevant to us today as it does in Middle-earth.
To really understand this myth, we have to go all the way back to the total darkness of early Middle-earth. We're talking way, way back, long before the first elves ever even opened their eyes. In this primordial era, there was an incredibly talented but, deeply impatient artisan named Aulë. And Aulë committed an unauthorized act of creation. As we'll see, this one secret choice, made deep down beneath the mountains, didn't just break the rules. It set off a massive divine chain reaction that fundamentally changed the fabric of this entire world forever.
So let's jump right into part one, Aulë's secret creation. Now, Aulë wasn't acting out of malice here. He was the great smith of the divine beings known as the Valar, and his heart was just bursting with this desire to share his knowledge. He desperately wanted learners, children to whom he could teach his incredible lore and crafts. But the grand design of the Supreme Creator, Ilúvatar, required patience. The universe just wasn't ready yet. Aulë, however, kind of decided he didn't want to wait. Working in absolute secrecy, hiding from the eyes of all his peers, he retreated to a hidden hall far beneath the mountains. And there, he took his hammer and forged the 7 fathers of the Dwarves. Because Middle-earth was still overshadowed by darkness and the destructive power of a dark lord named Melkor, Aulë knew these new beings would face a severely hostile, unforgiving environment. So he designed these 7 fathers to be exceptionally strong and incredibly unyielding. They were built to survive an era of terror and tough enough to handle absolutely whatever the darkness threw at them.
But, as you might expect, you can never truly hide creation from the ultimate creator. In the very hour Aulë finished his work and actually began teaching his new beings how to speak, Ilúvatar confronted him. The voice of Ilúvatar echoed out with a really piercing question. Why hast thou done this? Ilúvatar demanded to know why Aulë attempted something so far beyond his pay grade, beyond his authority. The absolute truth of this universe was that Aulë could only create mindless puppets. Without Ilúvatar's specific divine flame, these dwarves could only move when Aulë actively fought to move them. They weren't true life. Confronted by the supreme being, Aulë's response is surprisingly humble and honestly pretty heartbreaking. He doesn't make excuses, he doesn't demand power. He explains that he didn't want lordship at all. He just wanted beings to love and to teach so they could appreciate the sheer beauty of the universe. He compares himself to a child of little understanding, just making play of the deeds of his father. And then he offers his creations up to Ilúvatar before weeping and doing the unthinkable. He literally raises his great hammer to smash the very children he just made, fully ready to destroy the work of his own presumption. In what is arguably one of the most beautifully dramatic moments in this entire mythology, Aulë swings his hammer down, but the dwarves, they actually shrink from it in terror. They bow their heads down and beg for mercy. The absolutely crucial point here is this: puppets don't flinch, they just don't. By shrinking away from Aulë's will, they proved they were no longer just extensions of his mind. Actually, scratch that, they proved they had been granted true, independent life by Ilúvatar, who was so moved by Aulë's absolute humility that it quietly intervened. So Ilúvatar shows tremendous mercy here, accepting the dwarves into the world. But he dictates a very strict cosmic timeline. He refuses to reward Aulë's impatience. The firstborn of Ilúvatar's own design, the elves, they must be the first to walk the earth. That's non-negotiable. So the dwarves are ordered to sleep in the darkness under the stone. They must wait in stasis until the elves awaken first. Only then will Ilúvatar wake the dwarves up, setting the stage for a world where different creations are going to eventually share and differently compete for the exact same earth. Because they were conceived and forged during such dark, perilous times, their physical and mental traits reflect their origin perfectly. Aulë designed the dwarves to be fiercely resilient. They're literally described as stone hard. And as anyone who knows a thing or two about dwarves will tell you, they are famously stubborn in both body and mind. They're fast in friendship, for sure, but equally fast in enmity.
They can suffer toil, hunger, and physical hurt far more easily than other speaking peoples. They live incredibly long lives, but they are, at the end of the day, mortal. This totally unique origin story gives the dwarves a fascinating perspective on life and death. The elves, they actually kind of assume that when dwarves die, they just return to the inanimate earth and stone from which they were made. But the dwarves themselves, they hold a much grander belief. They call Aulë by the name Mahal, meaning the maker. And they firmly believe that after they die, Mahal cares for them. They think he gathers them in the halls of Mandos so that one day after the last battle at the very end of the world, they will aid their father in the actual physical remaking of the universe. All right, let's move on to the next phase of this conflict in part 2, Yavanna's fear for nature. You know, every action has a reaction. After Ilúvatar's intervention, Aulë finally goes and confesses his secret project to his wife, Yavanna. Now, Yavanna isn't just anyone. She is the divine guardian of all growing things, the flora and fauna of the world. And when Aulë tells her that a brand new race of stone-hard builders is going to be waking up soon, her reaction is not exactly one of marital celebration. It is one of immediate, profound dread. This brilliantly illustrates a core ideological clash that forms the foundation of so much conflict in this world. It's like a giant cosmic collision course. Think about it. On one hand, you have Aulë's children, the dwarves. They are builders, miners, and smiths who will relentlessly delve into the earth and wield biting iron. On the other hand, you have Yavanna's creations, the trees, the plants, the ancient forests, things that are rooted directly to the silent ground. They cannot run away, and they certainly cannot defend themselves against a swinging axe. Yavanna looks at her husband and just utters this totally heartbreaking realization. Many a tree shall feel the bite of their iron without pity. She knows that because Aulë hid this thought from her, his children will have little natural love for the things she loves. They're going to value what they make with their own two hands over the natural growing world. This anxiety that Yavanna voices is incredibly powerful because it hits the nail right on the head. It perfectly mirrors our own real-world historical tensions between the relentless march of industrial progress and the desperate need for environmental conservation. Now, Aulë hears her grief, of course, but his response is just a stark, undeniable reality. He neutrally points out that it won't just be his dwarves cutting down trees. All the children of Ilúvatar, including the elves and eventually men, will need resources to survive. They'll need to eat and they'll need to build shelters. He argues that having dominion over Arda, the world itself, inherently requires the use of its materials. He genuinely hopes they will do so with respect and gratitude, but he essentially sets up this eternal, unresolvable friction over exactly how nature is utilized by an expanding civilization. Deeply distressed and totally unappeased by Aulë's logic, Yavanna seeks out Manwë, the king of the Valor. She essentially asks him, is it true? Will the coming children really have total dominion to do whatever they want with my forests? When Manwë confirms it, Yavanna is just crushed. She notes that at least animals can flee, but trees cannot. So she wishes out loud for a miracle. She wishes for a way that her beloved, rooted forests could finally speak for themselves, actively defend themselves, and physically punish those who wield iron against them. This brings us to our final act in part 3, Shepherds of the Trees. Yavanna's desperate plea actually sparks a massive divine revelation. As she speaks to Manwë of trees catching the rain and singing to Ilúvatar, Manwë suddenly falls dead silent. Her words trigger something. He remembers forgotten, hidden details from the original foundational music that literally created the universe. The vision of creation is renewed in his mind, and he realizes, oh wait, Ilúvatar had already planned a solution to this exact problem. Manwë returns to Yavanna with a message straight from the Supreme Creator. Ilúvatar assures her that he heard every single voice during the creation of the world, even the rustling leaves of her forests. He declares that when the children finally awake and step onto the earth, the thought of Yavanna will awaken right alongside them. The universe is not going to leave her natural wonders completely defenseless against the axes of dwarves and men. We get a really clear sequence of how this natural defense system will work. Yavanna's thought will actively summon powerful spirits from afar, which will then physically enter the flora and fauna actually dwelling inside the great trees and the wild beasts. As a result of this spiritual infusion, the forests are going to hold a terrifying power. Their just anger will be genuinely feared by anyone who attempts to blindly or greedily destroy them with iron. It's the ultimate defense mechanism. And the trees won't be the only ones getting a mighty upgrade. Manwë reminds Yavanna that their thoughts once met and soared together. Because of this, the great eagles will also manifest in the physical world. These massive, majestic birds will house themselves in the highest mountain peaks to watch over the lands. Meanwhile, down below, the newly awakened spirits will become the Ents, the literal shepherds of the trees, who will walk the ancient forests specifically to protect the rooted things. The cosmic scales are finally balancing out.
Empowered by this divine promise, Yavanna returns triumphant to Alula's forge. She finds him right back at work, pouring molten metal. She looks at her husband and delivers this incredibly severe, majestic warning. She tells him that his stubborn children better beware, because a formidable power will soon walk the forests, and if the dwarves bring their axes to the woods without respect, they will arouse a terrible wrath at their own peril. It's perhaps the ultimate cosmic "I told you so." Nature finally has a real heavy hitter in its corner.
But Aulë, being the ever-pragmatic smith he is, doesn't even stop his work. Without missing a single beat, he drops this completely unyielding reply. Nonetheless, they will have need of wood. It's such a powerful, grounded statement. The Ents may walk, the eagles may soar, and the forests may finally fight back, but civilization will always require resources to survive. Which leaves us with a fascinating, practically unresolvable question to ponder today. As you look at our own world, can the ancient strife between the relentless drive for industry and the sacred sanctity of nature ever truly find a perfect balance?